Good afternoon. This paper, or this idea that I'm trying to explain, is very similar in some ways to that of D.L. Swanson in her article, Dysfunctional Conglomerates, an explanation provided by linking ontological individualism to social relationships within an open systems context. In it, she explains that, and she quoted Bates to say, that there has been no real language developed to describe the combined interactions of organizations with the social system, that is, people and individual people in them. She quoted 5 other sources that point to the fact that knowledge is gained through metaphorical implications carried through. In other words, thinking of an organization as a biological organism has its worth in seeking knowledge. The main metaphor I have wished to employ in regard to systems is that of addiction, that is, addiction to rewards and punishments. However, I mean addiction to be taken literally when referring to the persons involved in systems. For example, that would be addiction to anything. It could also be addiction to power or to money, etc. D.L. Swanson points out the blurring of the above 2 areas, person and system. And Swanson arrives at a tautological psychic description of the process of executives and that of their conglomerates. Processes may be leaders. Okay, that's all I have for that right now. What she says is that they were separated out from their conglomerates, from their parts. They had diverse parts to the conglomerates, and the leaders were like schizoid, separated out from their various parts. And the cause of this could have been, I don't know if it was, I have no proof that it was, but I imagine it was that these leaders, the leaders of the conglomerates, were being rewarded separately from the people down below, and I believe that that would be what separated them out. But that's just a guess. I don't have any proof for that. Okay, now I'm going to start with something else, and it's the usual. Rewards and punishment syndromes take place when persons favor their own needs over and at the expense of the common good. In the political sphere, leaders favor their own interests. Through this, rewards and punishment syndromes are created within organic systems. These syndromes evolve through phases, so it's the rewards and punishment is a syndrome within the organic systems. They evolve through phases and reproduce themselves in a multiplier effect. Eventually, if allowed to continue, these rewards and punishment syndromes lead to the death of complex organic systems. Rewards and punishment political syndromes have myriad forms. For example, tax breaks, so that would be a reward. Encouragement, those are rewards. War, that would be a punishment, etc. Rewards and punishments are manipulation by means of any stimuli given to encourage certain actions as opposed to others. So those mean the same thing within my paper quite often. That is, rewards and punishment and manipulation and addiction, which is to rewards and punishment. Any of those could refer to the same concept. These rewards and punishment syndromes invade authentic organic cultures. Addictive cultures are not organic because their activity is not derived naturally from reality, but is contrived and derived from the manipulation of reality, often through artificial rewards and punishment. Addictive culture is a reward and punishment syndrome made up of a geometric progression of activities which eats away at organic culture and, if allowed, eventually devastates it. Using a medical metaphor, we can diagnose this syndrome through recognition of symptoms. Some of them are the usual: manipulation, imbalance, polarization, integration and disintegration, uniformity, misplaced priorities, exponential growth of the syndrome, evolving forms, escalation toward death, loss of freedom and equality, disrespect for the most complex level, illusion, disconnected feedback, and denial. The part saying the escalation toward death, this is if the addiction is allowed to continue and continue, just as in a person addicted to drugs. The escalation is toward death. Eventually, a person can die if they don't stop either drinking or taking drugs and so on. The same with this. The syndromes caused by this are not just the death of one person. Sometimes it's the death of a whole system, which is affected by the one person or many people's addictions. Rewards and punishment syndromes versus organic systems. I will describe a phenomenon which can be noticed taking place in many different contexts, including world politics. Although it is a social and/or political phenomenon, it correlates to patterns a biological phenomenon might follow. I call it the reward and punishment syndrome. I use the word organic in the context of community to mean agreements which are freely made, in which artificial manipulative conditions, in other words, rewards and punishments again, are not used. Addictive culture can be followed step by step, that is, when rewards and punishments are used. Number one, application of rewards and punishment to organic systems, causing, number two, imbalances because parts receive new rewards or punishments, while other parts pay for it. They are punished and so have less of what they need, causing, number three, polarization, separation between parts of systems, which becomes, number four, disintegration of related parts of systems and integration between formerly unrelated parts. So disintegration of formerly related parts and integration of formerly unrelated parts. Since they depended on their relationship in the original system to make ends meet, imbalances now occur, causing victims of the newly imbalanced culture to use rewards and punishment means to gain false substitutes of the real satisfaction of them, of their needs. If they apply artificial rewards and punishments, step one begins again, and the vicious circular phenomenon becomes ingrained. The following example is meant to demonstrate the steps of an addictive syndrome. Let's say a new country was created in the 1500s by process of buying off, rewarding the leaders in order to get more land, and using war against the inhabitants when the leaders were not accepting bribes. That would be the step one. An imbalance in land would develop between the groups. That would be step two. A rift would be created between the new settlers and the original inhabitants. That would be step three. As the new inhabitants attain more and more land through rewards and or war, the original inhabitants' order would disintegrate more and more, while the new nation would become more and more integrated. Step four, imbalances would escalate, and some would have too much land and riches, and the others not enough to sustain the barest of necessities. That's step five. Those with too much economic power would have an extreme need for trustworthy friends because of people who were jealous, angry, violent, or might use them to elevate their own status. And the original inhabitants would, of course, have an extreme need for land. These extreme needs on both sides would lead to a habitual inclination toward the use of rewards and punishments in order to get quick fixes and the illusion of having their needs met. Step six, the reward and punishment syndromes would continue in their repetitive cycles. Symptoms. As in disease, there are stages in the development of the reward and punishment syndrome. When a syndrome is diagnosed by a doctor, he recognizes symptoms, whether they are in the beginning stages or the later stages. Here also a practitioner can recognize a reward and punishment syndrome by seeing one or two stages of it without necessarily seeing all the stages. He knows in theory what can happen without seeing every part of it played out. Also, there may be variations in symptoms depending upon the context and depending upon its evolution. Okay, next part is syndromes within systems. Rewards and punishments syndromes take place within organic systems. They feed off the organic systems and grow within them, destroying them. Here's an example one of these syndromes within systems. Modern industries come into a traditional area and they are favored, in other words rewarded, with the best land, water, use of natural resources, and the best workers. They are separated from the rest of the area, and at the same time they depend on the resources of the rest of the area. Little by little, the modern way of life, the rewarded way, will increase and pervade much of the area. This is a syndrome pervading the organic systems. Okay, syndromes within systems. Another example. If cars are rewarded over mass transit by massive public spending for extra streets, roads, and highways with the latest technology and constant repairs, immense amounts of land are lost for agriculture. The funds used on road technology are lost for any of society's pressing needs: health care, education, environmental protection, etc. If car use is rewarded with special up-to-the-minute reports about driving conditions on all the media, radio, and TV stations, this expensive airtime would not be used for society's need for serious information. Asphalt, parking lot, land would not be used for parks with trees providing needed shade and flood control. When parking structures where each individual space costs $10,000 to construct are approved, they are not used for low-cost housing for the homeless.